I was born and raised on the West Coast in Los Angeles, California, particularly. And the East Coast is a lot different, as you know, than the South and the West Coast. And the West Coast is probably one of the more liberal areas to live in, if you will. I lived in a very diverse neighborhood, economically and racially. But more or less, things were pretty normal as far as I was concerned. And my first exposure to the worst parts of racism and the worst parts of the genesis, if you will, of the civil rights movement was watching The Dogs and the Water on TV. And as a very, very young man, it was particularly scary that this was real. It made me aware that the world was not fair, that it wasn't balanced, and that the life that I lived was not the same for everybody. And particularly the power of the media and what it did to help explain and expose what was going on in Alabama and the southern states to me, which was really hard to comprehend at the time as a young man. The opportunity was that a friend of mine was a local policeman for the LAPD. I should say a friend of mine's father was. And he had security duty, actually, for Martin Luther King. And I had a chance to meet him. I was probably 12 years old when I did, maybe 13. And he was his security guard. And very normal person. He had a van for him and his family and some of the people that traveled with him. A very brief meeting, though. And it seemed once I grew older and saw him on TV and saw really the March on Washington, and the fact that he could rally so many people to be focused on a particular subject that, from my perspective, was not as serious except for my learning of what took place on TV. It was a very powerful impact on me and overpowering to really see all of the people who came to Washington to talk about the issue and to be representatives of the American people and talk about what the problem was and to bring the attention to the United States government. So that was just a phenomenal experience, and really from a distance. But it also kind of all links together as to what has taken place today, and to actually have a black president, but actually to look at what's going on in history and see that it has gotten more sophisticated. Racism, economicism, if you will, and the way that people who are poor and underrepresented still get treated. And it really kind of says that we need to do more. And it's a challenge because, as I said, it's more sophisticated than ever before. We've gotten to a point where we're willing to not vote, if you will, on issues as opposed to vote and have a compromise. And I find that very challenging, which is why I think today, if you will, the March on Washington is probably equally as important, is that people's voices have to be heard so that we can progress through the challenges that we have. One of the things that Martin Luther King presents to me is leadership. And it's significant that all the people that worked with Dr. King and that supported him saw his vision and shared in his mission. And I think today we all share in his mission, and we share the vision that we would all be equal in each other's eyes, and that ultimately we could overcome some of the negatives that hold our society back.